Welcome to Be Inspired, your ultimate resource for finding inspiration in a rapidly changing world. Today's episode is called Stay the Course, and it's about what happens when you finally let yourself be found. And I'm your host, Francesca Durham. You know, there are moments in life that you stop dead in your tracks, not because something went wrong, but because something went profoundly, unexpectedly right. I want to talk to you today about one of those moments, and I want to talk to you about what made it possible. Not luck, not perfect timing, but years of quietly, faithfully staying the course, even when you couldn't see where the path was leading. Okay, to wind back just a little bit for those of you who don't know me, I was born in Changi, Singapore. My family traveled for a brief time across Europe before calling Canada home. Now, from the very beginning, my life was about movement, transition, and learning to belong in spaces that were still becoming familiar. I didn't know it then, but that experience of living between worlds, of finding home inside yourself when the outside worlds kept shifting, would become the foundation of everything I would one day be called to do. I understand now that living between worlds was never just a childhood experience. It was a training ground, because every waiting room I ever sat in, whether it was waiting to belong, waiting to be seen, or waiting to find my place, prepared me to realize that feeling in others. And when an extraordinary artist recently invited me into her own waiting room, not metaphorically, but literally, through the paintings she's creating from the cancer treatment rooms she now inhabits, I understand immediately why she called. I had been living in waiting rooms my whole life. I just hadn't given them that name yet. My career began in retail. Then, under the umbrella of human resources, my work focused on recruitment, then job placement and business development, and then, unexpectedly, a calling I never could have predicted, one that would take me out of boardrooms and into the most sacred spaces I had ever known, happened. And looking back, what seemed like a non-linear path was actually a very deliberate unfolding. Each pivot, every reinvention, every unexpected turn was quietly moving me away from titles and towards something more meaningful. And that's when life, as it sometimes does, slowed everything down. And in that stillness, something became very clear. The most profound service I could offer another human being had nothing to do with a desk or a title. It had everything to do with presence, with showing up in the spaces most people quietly avoid. I became a certified clinical musician and a therapeutic harp practitioner, facilitating wellness and recreational harp workshops in community, taking my small lap harp into long-term care facilities for a while, into palliative care, and into hospice. I played for people at the end of their lives. I sat with the dying and offered the only thing I had at the time was music, presence, and love. No agenda, no rehabilitation, because therapeutic harp practitioners, we don't offer that service. Just the resonance of the harp strings meeting a human soul that needed to feel less alone. And I want to tell you, those waiting rooms taught me more about hope than any book I've ever read. Because here's what I learned in those sacred spaces. Hope is not the absence of suffering. Hope is the choice to remain present within it. The people I sat beside were not pretending everything was fine. They were holding the full weight of their reality and choosing still to receive beauty, to let music in, to feel something other than fear, if only for a few minutes. And that's courage. That is hope in the most pure and honest form. Over the years, my work expanded, as callings tend to do when you follow them faithfully. I became a Mari practitioner, working with the Mandela Assessment Research Instrument, facilitating creative art workshops for women in transition. Women navigating loss of self, loss of a career, loss of a loved one. Women who had given so much of themselves to others that they'd forgotten the sound of their own voice. Now, I call this work soul retrieval, and it's exactly what it sounds like, helping women excavate their way back to the essence of who they are, back to self-love, back to the truth that they were always worthy, always whole, even while life made them feel otherwise. I know this territory not only as a practitioner, but as a woman who has had to find her own way back more than once. Now, I'm not going to dwell in the details of the harder chapters in my life, not because they don't matter, because this story is not about what happened to me or for me. It's about what I chose again and again in spite of what happened. I chose to keep going. I chose service. I chose to believe that everything I was living and learning was building towards something I couldn't yet see. And then, not long ago, on an ordinary afternoon in the middle of coming out of our winter season and out of that season of uncertainty, an email arrived. An artist that I've had the profound honor of working with had reached out to invite me to curate her next body of work. I cannot share the details of her personal journey. That story is hers to tell in her own time through her extraordinary art. But I can tell you this. She's doing the bravest thing I've ever witnessed an artist to do. She is making work from the most vulnerable and luminous place a human being can stand. And she actually looked at my life, all of it, the workshops, the hospice rooms, and the curatorial work that I've been doing, and the soul retrieval work, and the decades of showing up for others. And she said, "You are exactly who I need." You know, I sat with that email and I cried, not from sadness, but from the recognition, because in that moment, I understood that none of it had been wasted. Not the pivots, not the reinventions, not the years when I couldn't explain to anyone why I did so many seemingly unconnected things, not the seasons of financial uncertainty when I wondered whether I had made the right choices. Not a single moment of any of it. It had all been preparation. So today, I want to speak to you directly, to the one listening who's in the middle of your own uncertain season, the one who's tired, the one who's been told directly or indirectly that what you do doesn't make sense, doesn't fit in a box, doesn't follow a predictable path. I want you to hear this. Your path is not broken. It's being woven. Every experience you have lived, every role you have played, every loss you have carried, every room you've walked into with nothing but your presence and your willingness to serve is part of something larger than you can currently see. So stay the course. Not because everything will work out perfectly, and not because the uncertainty will disappear, but because the life that is waiting for you on the other side of your faithfulness is the one that only you, with your exact history, your exact wounds, your exact gifts, can live. Hope is not a feeling. It is a practice. It is the daily decision to keep moving toward the light even when you can't see it clearly, even when your legs are tired, even when your world around you doesn't fully understand what you're building. And inspiration arrives when we least expect it. Sometimes in an email, sometimes in a harp strings vibration in a quiet room, sometimes in the eyes of a woman who finally remembers who she was before the world asked her to be smaller. So be open to what is being prepared for you, even now in the middle of the waiting, especially in the middle of the waiting, because the life that is meant for you is not lost. It is not forgotten. It is simply being assembled piece by piece, experience by experience, room by room, into something only you can live. So stay the course, trust the unfolding, and never underestimate what is possible when you refuse to stop believing in yourself. I'm Francesca Durham, and this is Be Inspired. Thank you for being here today with me. Continue to live your life consciously, powerfully, and with purpose every single day. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any comments. I'd love to hear from you.